In this video, I'm going to show you how to take this image, and unlike this very generic desaturated version, I'm going to show you how to use luminosity masking to get this image. So what's the question? Are you ready? It's Photoshop time, and you know the drill. Smack it, whack it, and crack-a-lack it.
Yes! That's awesome! What?
Now, if we were trying to make this image pop, we would probably do our normal selection and mask creation. And let's try that very quickly. My first attempt would be to take a look at the channels. But as I toggle through them, blue is the best at approaching some sense of contrast, but it's still not great. Normally, we could just copy specific color channels for the foreground, specific color channels for the background, and blend them together ourselves, and the bulk of the work is done quickly for us. But this one's just not going to be the case. I'll make Command or Control J, so I'm not working on the back layer, and I'm going to leave it in color for now, even though I do want this to be a black and white conversion in the end. So what I want to do is I want to make this foreground brighter. So I'll add a levels adjustment mask. I'll drag the midtones up, try to increase my contrast by shortening the range of the black and the white. And you see how it just isn't giving us the contrast that we want. It's still very flat. It's getting there, but it's not quite there. But then right away we see that, well, now the sky is too bright. So you would either grab the gradient tool with a black to white foreground and come up to your gradient. Just take a look. Make sure it is black to white under the basics, and just drag a gradient down, maybe shorter, to keep this darker back here. And then if you're like me, you'd say, okay, well, let me just duplicate that, select that mask, come over to Image, Adjustments, and invert the mask, because white reveals, black conceals. So we know that right now we're revealing the sky. So I'll click on that levels adjustment that I made before and not bring it lighter, but do the opposite. Pull that darker. Then you kind of see this line right here, right? This contaminating. So then you click on the mask, you hit B for brush, and left bracket key or right bracket key, depending on if you need to make your brush smaller or larger. Left bracket key makes it smaller. And then you paint. I'm at 30% opacity, so it's fairly subtle. And this really isn't a bad way to go, but it's not super accurate. I'll option click on the mask. Do you see how that's not really an accurate line going across there? So watch this. I'm going to delete, come back to this. Watch what I do. I'm going to hit Command or Control A, Command or Control C. I've now copied this entire image. I'm going to click Add Layer Mask. The mask is selected. So I'm going to hit Command or Control V, trying to paste that image into the mask, but it didn't work. You see how I just pasted it right above it, which is the same as Command or Control J? So I hit delete. Oh, my mask wasn't selected, I guess. So I'll select my mask, hit Command or Control V. Still doesn't work. Here's why. You actually need to see the mask in your screen if you want to paste something into it. So I'll select my mask, Alt Option to see my mask. Here's my mask. Now when I hit Command or Control V, it will paste the image into my mask. If you're asking yourself, well, why is it in black and white? That's because masks only see from pure black, which is 000 in the RGB channels, to pure white, which is 255 in the RGB channels. So it's going to convert anything color into shades of gray. But here's where it's pretty powerful. I'll click back on this just to see. Now we know we're on this layer mask. Command or Control D to deselect. Command 0 just to fit it in the screen a little nicer. What do we talk about? Black reveals, white conceals. Isn't that the truth? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a curves adjustment layer, and I'm going to take this mask and I'm just going to grab it and pull it up to that mask. And it's going to say, do you really want to replace this layer mask? And I'm going to say, yes, I do. So it's going to take it off of my duplicated copy, and it's going to put it up onto that curves adjustment. Knowing the things you already know, black conceals, white reveals. So what's going to be most effective if I make this brighter by clicking on this icon and I click on the midtones and I'm about to pull it up? What's going to go brighter? What's the lighter area of the mask? The sky. So this is going to make the sky lighter. It's going to make everything a little lighter, right? Because it's not 100% pure black and pure white. There's sophisticated shades of gray in here. And I don't want to make the sky brighter. I want to make the sky a little darker. But then that, of course, made my ground a little darker. So I'll hit Command or Control J to duplicate that. While that mask is selected, I'll hit Command or Control I to invert it. And now I'll bring this up to make my foreground a little brighter. So now I have individual control over each area. If I want to make the masks more sophisticated, again, option, click on them. If I hit Command or Control L, which is just a destructive way of applying levels, but it's going to work perfect for this. I can make my mask darker. So if I pull my black point over to the base of the mountain, all the dark grays will be darker. And I can make my lighter areas lighter by pulling this in. But I still get that very sophisticated selection. Click OK. Then I can do the same thing for this. I don't even have to see the mask to do this because I'm selected on the mask. So I hit Command or Control L. Now watch how I make this mask more high contrast. This is going to make my wider areas wider, which means more of the effect is going to be applied. And let's take a look at this mask. See how we have this very sophisticated approach? This is the basics of luminosity masking, giving you exact specific control, which you could never hand paint the variation of these individual grass leaves. Go to the very top. I'm going to put a gradient map because again, I do want this to be in black and white. So now, and if you start getting confused, like what is this again? Okay, that was the sky. Then go ahead and double click on that name and name it sky. So this must have been the foreground. Yep, that was the foreground. Double click on that, foreground. So now I'm going to duplicate my foreground layer. I'm going to choose color dodge because I like the look of that. Lower the opacity so it's not so crazy. So we're getting there. Let's take it a little further. This is the sky. So we were making the sky a little darker. Now I'm going to jump everything to its own layer. Command Shift Option letter E. And I still need more contrast. Command or Control J. The overlay blend mode tends to give contrast, and that's helping, but it's still not there, is it? What I want to do is I want to go to the dodge tool. I'm on midtones. Left bracket key for a smaller brush, and I just want to brighten up the midtones in this area, leaving the shadows where they are and the highlights where they are. And I'll do another pass, make this little cropping of rocks a little brighter, then another pass. Okay, now I need to decide what am I going to do for the sky. I think I'd like to burn the sky. Midtones, I'll hit 7 for 70%. And see if this is too dark, just at the top. Then I'll click, then I'll do it again. I like where that's going. Probably pop back over to the dodge tool, 20%, big soft brush, and just soften what I just did a little bit. Now, compress these to their own layer. At this point, I would pull it over to Adobe Camera Raw. Once you're in Adobe Camera Raw, this is a great place to pull up the clarity, which is going to further enhance contrast. The dehaze is a great one to use for landscapes. I'm going to see if I open up the shadows, what that looks like. Pull down my highlights to make sure nothing is too visually bright. And maybe put a subtle vignette on this particular image. So I'm going to select this layer and go all the way to this layer. Hit Command or Control G, the group that hide it. So this is where we were, a very flat image. If I had converted this by just hitting Command Shift U, which is the exact same thing as going to hue saturation and dragging the saturation down, it would look like this. So with that combination of luminosity masking, gave us kind of a jump start on getting us in the direction we needed to create an image more visually interesting. If this is too far, it's very easy to go too far. As always, just blend back down just to dial in. Maybe I only wanted 87% of that effect. Again, you have this total control over making your images the way you want them to look. Can't wait to see what you make.
Yes!
Hey, what are you still doing here? It's over. Actually, all kidding aside, I hope this video helped. And if it did, consider subscribing. I like subscribers.
That's awesome! What? You just took one in the jugular, man! Whoa! Yes! Oh my god, I did! This is...
Hey, you stayed to the end. You know what that means? You're awesome. I'm talking about you. Now get out of here.